The Chairman of Oversight, Mr. Comer from Kentucky.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Turner, I've launched an investigation, or the committee has, we all have, into the role of former senior White House officials in possibly abusing the authority of former President Joe Biden while the former president was rapidly deteriorating mentally and physically. We will be conducting transcribed interviews of a number of former White House officials to understand who was really making the decisions for President Biden. Your group, Power the Future, has expressed concerns that over half a dozen of the Biden administration executive actions, which were signed by the auto pen, related to climate policy, should be deemed null and void, again, due to the fact that they were signed by the auto pen without any public comment from President Biden confirming his knowledge of them. Now, why is it important that the American people know the truth about whether President Biden knowingly signed these orders, making significant and drastic shifts in our energy policy?
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. So as you can see on that intro, I got a fascinating little interaction right here. Now, I talked about this, I believe it was yesterday, that James Comer is subpoenaing. That's kind of hard to say. I don't know why, but he's issuing subpoenas. We'll put it that way. There we go. For some of Biden's closest aides and some of his cabinet officials, blah, blah, blah. Some people, we'll put it that way, that were close to Biden over to see, you know, about his cognitive decline, blah, 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 because of Mike Johnson's statement a little while back talking about Joe Biden issued an executive order to pause LNG exports for leases or something like that. We'll get into that, but this is just fascinating, and I just love this exchange right here, and I wanted to talk about it since I discussed it the other day. So y'all smash that like button and share this video anywhere and everywhere you can. Sign up, become a member, do all the goobly gobbly good stuff. So let's get into it.
Thank you for the question, sir. We're looking at this from the sense of deceit of the American people. This is impersonation of the president. Staffers, of course, have a lot of leniency in what they do working on behalf of the president, but these executive orders that we identified, there's no evidence of Joe Biden in first person, in his voice as president, talking about them. And I see some Pennsylvanians on the panel. When you ban the export of liquid natural gas and you never get asked about it in person, one has to wonder if Joe Biden did it or if his staffer did it on his behalf.
Now, you specifically expressed concern that President Biden was not aware of that specific action to implement the executive order pausing liquefied natural gas permits. Now, why are you specifically concerned the president was unaware of that specific order?
Well, there's an anecdote from earlier this year where Speaker of the House Johnson mentioned he was in conversation with President Biden and brought it up. And the president said, I don't know what you're talking about. At the time, that was understood as, wow, maybe the president's a little worse off than we realized. But maybe two things can be true. Maybe he really didn't know what Speaker Johnson was talking about. Mm-hmm. Maybe he had no idea he passed this executive order. And if the president has never asked about it and he hides from the press and there's no opportunity for him to get asked in public about it, how do we know he actually did it? And these are serious executive orders.
As a matter of fact, I covered that story when it came out. That was shocking to me because we have tons, you know, like Mike Johnson says here in this clip, we have lots of LNG export terminals in my state. As a matter of fact, there's two large ones like 20 minutes away from me. So this was fascinating. As a matter of fact, I've got that clip. I'm going to go ahead and run that right now, and then we'll finish this thing out.
Table. And I said, Mr. President, thanks for the moments. This is very important. I got some big national security things I need to talk to you about that I've heard and I think you know, and what do we do? But first, real quickly, Mr. President, can I ask you a question? I cannot answer this from my constituents in Louisiana. Sir, why did you pause LNG exports to Europe? Like, I don't understand, you know, liquefied natural gas is in great demand by our allies. Why would you do that? Because you understand, we just talked about Ukraine. You understand you're fueling Vladimir Putin's war machine because they got to get their gas from him, you know. And he looks at me, stunned with this, and he said, I didn't do that. And I said, Mr. President, yes, you did. It was an executive order, like, 3 weeks ago. And he goes, no, I didn't do that. And he's arguing with me. I said, Mr. President, respectfully, could I go out here and ask your secretary to print it out? We'll read it together. You definitely did that. And he goes, oh, you talk about natural gas. Yes, sir. He said, no, you misunderstand. He said, what I did is I signed this thing we're gonna conduct a study on the effects of LNG. I said, no, you're not, sir. You paused it. I know. I have the terminal, the export terminals in my state. I talked to those people this morning. This is doing massive damage to our economy, national security. It occurred to me, Barry, he was not lying to me. He genuinely did not know what he had signed. And I walked out of that meeting with fear and loathing because I thought, we're in serious trouble. Who is running the country?
This is not.
It is bizarre. You know, when President Trump signed his executive orders, we saw him sign the executive orders. He had a big event. He was, they were talking about the executive orders. They said, this is what this specific executive order is. We never saw any of that.
No, and lives were destroyed, sir. And when you ban the export of liquid natural gas, there are hundreds of thousands of men and women who work in the natural gas industry. Lives were destroyed. People went bankrupt because of that. And we have no evidence that Joe Biden himself actually
We haven't found any evidence either that, and ironically, unlike some of the investigations we've done in the past with respect to the former president, not many of the colleagues on the other side of the aisle are disputing many of the things that have come out in the Tapper book, the things that have come out with statements like what former Transportation Secretary Buttigieg and others have said, that they were shielded from the president. So we look forward to having these staffers come in. Our committee will be conducting transcribed interviews, possibly depositions, depending on how quickly they come in, and hopefully we'll get the truth to the American people. I want to switch gears and talk about the NGOs. The full committee has another investigation into the green energy scam. I don't know how else to put it, known as the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund, and the NGOs that receive significant amounts of money through it. Can you tell us a little bit about this and the NGOs and the left? Obviously, they advocate for initiatives as an excuse to spend billions in local communities, but enrich themselves too. Who else benefits from these handouts? You know, every Democrat, I know Ms. Stansbury loves government programs. They love to spend money and create bureaucracies, but who really benefits from programs like this specific scam that I talked about?
The operatives aligned to these organizations, consultancy groups, PR firms, lawyers, and it's all just an enormous cabal.
That sounds like a base for one of the two political parties.
100%.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much. We look forward to this committee working to get the truth to the American people and try to get spending under control. And we're going to see if these executive orders were really authorized by the president, or if this was being done unilaterally by some unnamed bureaucrats. Madam Chair, thank you for this subcommittee hearing. I yield back.
Speaking of those NGOs, as a matter of fact, Lee Zeldin, the EPA administrator, has been doing some amazing work on that front right there. DOJ has been finding all of these NGOs receiving billions and billions of dollars. Lee Zeldin found he called it a slush fund. I'm not sure if that's actually how it should be labeled. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But it was $538 billion going to several different NGOs. There was one NGO in particular, I forget the name of it right off the top of my head, but they received $2 billion in a grant from the government, taxpayer dollars, your money, and they had only been in existence for 5 whole months. And there was one that was tied to Stacey Abrams that looks like slush funds. Like, this is how the government funds. They fund these NGOs, and then a lot of these NGOs, not necessarily these green ones, but a lot of these NGOs slide that money right back into the politicians' pockets, y'all. Like, it goes back into Act Blue, and then we all know the scandal involving Act Blue, where that looks like a whole money laundering scheme. That money comes from those NGOs that goes into Act Blue through these fake payments from these elderly people that have no idea that they're donating hundreds of thousands of dollars. This is all fascinating. DOJ has been finding a lot of this, and I'm loving every single minute of it. And I'm loving every single minute of going after Joe Biden in that auto pen. Let's investigate this. Maybe Joe Biden did know about those LNG exports. Maybe he didn't. If he didn't, who the hell wrote that executive order up? There were many executive orders that were just psychotic. They were just simply psychotic. That's the only way to describe them. Like opening up the southern border, sending all this money to NGOs to help people come across that southern border, for crying out loud, illegally. It's just insane. We could be here all day talking about the slush fund that is NGOs, which that's what that committee hearing was on, and the whole thing with Biden and the executive order and the auto pen and all that was just an aside, and I found it very fascinating, and I wanted to talk about it right quick. But enough of my ranting. That's all I got on this one, y'all. I want y'all to let me know what y'all think about all this down in the comment section. Can you not wait to see what the results from that investigation from the House Oversight Committee are going to be? Let's see. Did Joe Biden know about this? How are we going to figure that out? Like, investigators, they have tools, folks, that we don't even know about. So maybe they can figure that out. Maybe they won't. I don't know. I find it fascinating. I would really love to know, but you guys let me know what y'all think. Is this just a big nothing burger? Is it going to go nowhere? Does it go somewhere? Are we going to get some pardons overturned because of that damn auto pen? I would love to see it. Love to hear your input. Y'all let me know what y'all think. Don't forget, smash that like button for me. Subscribe if you're new around here. Share this video anywhere and everywhere you can. Sign up. Become a member. Help me deliver the best possible content to you guys. And I would really, really appreciate that, y'all. But that's all I got on this one. I want to thank everybody for watching. And y'all try to have a good day. Stay legitical. Peace.